Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Executive Policy Committee for Wednesday, October the 16th of 2024. I want to welcome everybody who's here today, and those in the gallery and those maybe appearing online. I want to acknowledge that we are gathering today on Treaty 1 territory to home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu and Dakota peoples, the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. This is an 11 o'clock or 11 start this morning, which is unusual, but Councillor Duncan and I were part of an announcement with the establishment of the Canada Water Agency, which will be located here in downtown Winnipeg. Very exciting news today. And so that event went longer than anticipated, but it's really a really exciting day for the City of Winnipeg, the province of Manitoba, that national agency, in fact, which will be international in scope, will be located here and start its work in the center of our city. So with that being said, it is good to be joined today also by council colleagues, Councillor Santos and Lukes and Duncan and Brawadi, our interim CAO, Mr. Sherwood Armbruster, our clerks as well, and our city staff. And at this point, I think we'll need a motion then, please, to receive the minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Lukes, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. And I think Councillor Brawadi has some motions related to additions.
Yes, I'd like to move a leave of absence motion for Councillor Rollins.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
And I'd like to move suspension of the rule for the addendum reports, specifically on the SPC on Finance and Economic Development and the Governance Committee.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. We have some delegations today, so I'll turn it over to our clerk at this time to introduce the delegations.
Our first delegation is Councillor Eadie from the Mynarski ward to be heard with respect to report number 9, and Councillor Eadie is joining us in person.
Morning, Councillor Eadie, just a little to your left. There you go.
Is this karaoke? No.
If you want it to be. Good morning, good to see you.
Good. Yes. Good. Good morning. And it turns out that the 11 a.m. start was good for myself as well on this particular issue. It's a pretty heavy issue. I just want to start off by making a statement that I am speaking to city leadership here at Executive Policy Committee, and out in the community, all city councillors are considered to be leaders getting something done on behalf of the people in our city. And that is so important. And, you know, this is Winnipeg 150. We're talking about, you know, our stories of history and our future. So, and that's what this is all about. It's about all of Winnipeg, really, because a healthy Winnipeg everywhere is the greatest city on the planet. Anyway, neighborhood revitalization tri-level government agreement to try to establish sort of a core area initiative. I want to begin by acknowledging that, Mayor, you are our intergovernmental affairs lead, and is your mandate. And this is why I'm bringing a motion that you'll be able to read. I'm not really going to speak to all the words in it, but the first thing I will mention, though, is that all three levels of our governments, and actually the Indigenous Métis governments, are working towards the same goal. There's a whole number of initiatives that we're doing that can help revitalize neighborhoods, all levels. So it's not like nothing's being done. It doesn't look like anything's being done. We heard in the news, you know, Mayor, I heard you in the news. We have that report about, you know, and these are these inner city neighborhoods outside of downtown and partly in the downtown area, I think. But, you know, putting the bill on all these housings, well, most of these neighborhoods are where we have poverty. And I knew that we were going to move ahead with this stick that would try to correct things. But in some circumstances, we've been doing things that are working but the problem is so immense. And not everybody has the money, so a lot of those places that aren't paying the bill for the fire that happened, they may not have had insurance or whatever it is, but ultimately they don't have the money. We're going to end up owning those through tax sale in the end anyway, right? So that's just one aspect I wanted to talk about. That's the physical environment, our physical status of our homes. And with the half is a really good thing. It's a great initiative. We applied to do it, but it's not going to deal with most of these neighborhoods. Like, half will see some affordable apartments built and so multifamily and all that stuff. But if you look at what the problem is around these inner city neighborhoods, it's actually the individual family home, individual home rental, or it might be a duplex or whatever it is. Ultimately, we're going for the affordable rents. It can be made affordable when you have multifamily, and we're going ahead with that. We have the malls and corridors going, but I have to say the changes we're making to the zoning, that's not going to revitalize William White, for example. And I'll tell you why. Because the private sector is not going to be building there. They won't. They're going to be building in River Heights, St. Vital, parts of St. Boniface. So they're going to, well, even in the more northern parts of my ward, that's where it'll happen, because the private sector knows that people will pay the rents when they build it, if that's what it's going to be. Rentals, could be condo, whatever it is. Could even be a co-op. I think we have money in there for co-ops. I hope we do, because co-ops are a really good thing as well. It's a form of ownership, and ownership is important too for neighborhoods. And so there are gaps, and I hope that if you follow through, empower Councillor Gilroy and I to work at this. We really understand the issues there. And I must point out that our community renewal corporations really understand that. Community renewal corporations in the city were basically established by the province of Manitoba. And I know, Councillor Lukes, we have an area where we do need in your ward, so it's not necessarily just the inner city. One of the gaps is there needs to be a community renewal corp in parts of Waverly West, in a part of Waverly West. We can identify that gap through what we're doing is looking for the gaps, identifying them, how can we address them, come back to you, us, all of council, with a plan that sort of identifies what we can do, what we need to do. Like right now we have the housing improvement zones. You can get a grant for $1,500 as an individual resident in those 5 neighborhoods. Well, have you renovated your place lately? I'm looking to do it at my place. It's a lot of money, and we're talking. I'm not living in poverty though, and I can borrow money to get it done, and so on. So there are things, initiatives we can do to help people renovate. The Métis government, for example, they're giving anybody with their Métis card, they can get an $18,000 grant for renovations. And most of these homes in our old neighborhoods, these houses are getting really old. And they cost a lot of money. And so the Métis government has recognized one of the problems. We can identify that gap through others, and maybe we need to have more housing improvement zones. The 5 neighborhoods we have are great, but then we have the Dufferin neighborhood that doesn't. St. John's neighborhood is needing to be a housing improvement zone. So this is another gap that we could identify, and then the efforts that are done through the community renewal corporations, that's who it's done through. And they need to be able to identify and stuff, and they talk about sharing data. But what we'd like to do is just communicate, Councillor Gilroy and I, and as it says, come up with a plan. The original motion was, it was kind of like a big vacuum, right, Mayor? It was kind of like, well, what? What does that really mean? And, you know, and again, we, the city of Winnipeg, we're trying to do efforts, but it's going to take 3-4 levels of government to build a healthy city for that healthy future, our shared future. And I'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Eady. Well said on the need for sharing with senior levels of government to build the future together, so thank you. I know that I think the motion you've presented, I know my staff was looking at as well, and I certainly look forward to discussing it with EPC, sharing it with EPC as well, so we can have some dialogue, but thank you. I think there's a couple of questions. Councillor Santos?
Hi, Councillor Eady. Thank you for coming. Just for some clarity on my part, as a councillor who represents some of the inner city, specifically Weston, Centennial, and West Alexander, and I know you represent William White, you talked about neighborhood revitalization. Could you help me understand then the difference between what you're asking for versus what we already have in place, the housing improvement zone?
Well, social and economic. So the province is the main player in that area, but we're having to deal with those social ills. I know the mayor's working at economic opportunity, but one of the things we need to do is having gone through trauma and having had to rebuild a life that was originally maybe not the best. We need to find a way, like just to say we're going to resolve the addictions by doing this. What you have to be able to do is you need a plan. So I should get back. Housing improvement zones are about that physical part of our neighborhoods, our homes, right? And so that's what housing improvement zones do. But how do we get it? How do we actually empower, get individuals, help them build the capacity so that they can change their lives? I had a lot of support in building my life back, being totally blind. It took quite a few years. I felt very suicidal through part of it. And there's a lot of people living out there in our neighborhoods who feel like that. Socioeconomic is also about, now I heard today, they said this is organized, the retail theft, the amount that's happening. It's organized in a way, but the players, the actual individuals going out and doing the theft, the buyers, the people who are doing the selling of all these goods, they're the organized part. The other part is, if you're looking to have money for your addictions or to pay the electric bill or the water bill, you might have the rent being paid, but you got to pay the other bills, and like our water bills and so on. And so what you have is a bunch of individuals. That's the social economic part. You got people who are desperate enough to go out there, and then many of them do threaten violence. Because they're very agitated. They know they're doing something wrong. And that's how they act out, Councillor Santos. So what we need to do is we need to give people a hand up to build their own capacity to build a better life for themselves. That's what you have to do. So that's why we're calling on the federal and provincial government, because the city of Winnipeg, that's not what we necessarily do. We are worried about the physical. We are worried about providing city services that are safe. The mayor started a good initiative. We have the people going on the buses. Well, every bus is going to have somebody on it. We can't afford that. Can we, Mayor? No, we can't. So what we have to do is get at the root causes, and all our levels of government, including the Indigenous and Métis governments, who are proceeding as well. They're doing things to try to make Winnipeg a better place for Indigenous and Métis people to live with us together. And we need to respect each other, all of us. And so we need to identify the plan. You know, there used to be this, you could go, if you were an Indigenous person at Red River, I took business administration with a number of Indigenous people who were given a free opportunity and supports to graduate from business administration and get jobs. And all the people that I went with in my class, my years, they all got jobs. They didn't have to go out and steal. They didn't have to go out and do that stuff. I don't know how you resolve gang issues, Councillor Santos, but I know that the Spence Neighborhood Group, there's the, I can't remember the name of it, the anti-gang or whatever. The police service, all they can do is, you know, they're just trying to patch up or try to deal with it, but they can't actually do prevention, gang prevention. The officers, that's not working. That will never work, ever, ever. What they do is, where there are gang problems and stuff like that, they go in there and they have to use force. That's what happens, right? So anyway, that's a very long answer, Councillor Santos. There's so much more I could continue to say, but the system needs to have some flexibility in it from the federal and provincial, and even at the city level, some flexibility to allow people, because every individual is somewhat different. And again, we're not going to solve the addiction problem 100%. It's been here for like hundreds of years, right? So.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor.
Yeah, just a follow-up question to what you're stating. It sounds very similar to you're requesting a housing first model where we're wanting people to be housed first and then have the 24-hour supports to help with their mental health and addictions issues so that they continue to stay housed.
Well, we're working towards having no encampments, people living rough. The vast majority of people, there are some who simply need an economic opportunity to be able to afford to live in a safe place to raise their families or to care for themselves and their families. The housing first is interesting. The mini housing behind the Thunderbird House, overseen by Mamoe, we heard a report today, I think it was in the news, or was it yesterday?
Yesterday.
They talked about, they had support workers talking about there were so many unexpected support needs. They learned and they're helping those people. And that's a good thing. So housing first, just putting them in housing without supports, I'll tell you what happened in my ward on one example, where Miriam Willis had success, found some homes for some people living in encampments. I don't know if they never paid their electrical bill before or whatever. So they're living in this home and the rent itself is covered. But then they started stealing from the neighbors, stealing electricity because they couldn't get electricity because they had to pay the old bill. So, like, so when you say housing first, you got to get, the mini housing was they got with Mamoe, they got the housing, but at the very same time, the supports were there to ensure that somehow things were being dealt with, right? So people who have lived economically through crime don't change that fast. They may not even be addicted. They may have not gotten enough of an education to get a decent job.
Thank you very much. Good. Good. Thank you very much, Councillor Eady, for your presentation. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Our next delegation is John Pristansky to be heard in support of amendments to the vacant buildings and fire prevention bylaw and revised fee structure, which is report number 6.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, councillors. Thank you for allowing me to be able to present here today. Just want to quickly comment on Councillor Eadie, my city councillor, the Minarski ward, for which I live in. I think he's exactly right and correct that it's the private sector who, for the most part, will drive change in the inner city or in a Winnipeg. Thank you for correcting the vacant, or having your department propose to correct the vacant building bylaw for fees for burnt buildings. I think it truly is a step forward, and I think your intentions as council and administratively are noble and well put. The bylaw right from the beginning had problems. I'm not going to go into them. That's the past. You're proposing to rescind that bylaw or that portion of the bylaw. I suggest that that is a good move and well-deserved and long overdue. But, and yes, there's always a but, this vacant building fire is a problem in large part for problems that the City of Winnipeg has created. It's created them because it allows arsonists to run free in the City of Winnipeg. Let's remember, a vacant building does not cause its own fire. A person, for the most part, has to start it. The property owners are being villainized and blamed because their properties are being set on fire by a third party. Existing neighborhoods are being damaged, and neighbors are being led to believe that it's the vacant building that's at fault. Again, remember, a vacant building does not start itself or cause itself to burn. Let's keep at the forefront, a lot of the vacant buildings are being renovated in some form, or they're in the process of being renovated. They're trying to deal with City of Winnipeg Permit Department or Property and Development, rezonings, demolition permits, and the likes of those. The goal of the City of Winnipeg, I believe, is to stop the vacant building fires. Your report states it's to encourage property owners to take action to address the significant increase in vacant building fires and the subsequent response costs. First, we got to acknowledge that there is a bigger problem than the vacant building problem. And it really is a multidisciplinary matter. Yes, you need the fire department for obvious reasons. You need the police department actively involved. I can take you back to the 1990s when we were having similar vacant buildings set on fire. I can take you back to the auto bin days of when those auto bins were being set on fire. We asked our community-based policing at the time to move forward and to find who and how these fires were starting. And we found that it was a small group of people that were setting the fires. Most likely, and I'm going back from memory, it was children and a few other individuals with ill-gotten motivations. But we corrected that problem. One of the tools that we used is we allowed property owners to demolish the buildings that did not have a useful life, that the renovation of it was the renovation cost far outweighed the cost of the renovated building or the market value. We have to realize that in this multidisciplinary approach, we also have to include property and development. I can give you a prime example of a commercial building right downtown that reached the end of its economic life. The owner bought the building in the spring, I believe, or late winter of 2023. In September of 2023, it was set on fire. And that was after numerous attempts to vacate the property. It was properly boarded, vacate the property from trespassers, call the police, repeat the process, and I believe that in the afternoon they were kicked out and in the evening it was set on fire. That's not a vacant building problem. That's a deviant individual problem. And we have to be able to work with our policing, and we have to take it serious. We have the property owners that have to be involved. My understanding is for this report, not one property owner was contacted and asked for any input in terms of what could happen and what they could do to participate. Instead, it came down from your administration with administrative ideas and comments and no on-the-ground practical applications for the people involved. And the last phase to this interdisciplinary problem is we need social services involved. And Mayor Gillingham was quite correct when he commented about the homeless people and people on the riverbanks, that we need social services involved, but they have a role to play. Here too, they have a role to play. And they got to be involved because we got to, in some ways, work with the police department, work with social services to make sure that the individuals that are breaking into these homes aren't setting them on fire. And of course, I want you to take into context, we know that there are vacant buildings out there that need to be demolished immediately. The owners are absentee and they don't care. And that's a social problem, both in terms of life and in terms of cost to the community. So what I'm actually looking at here is working with the owners that are responsible, that want to do something. So your report doesn't talk about Winnipeg Police Services as though they don't exist. Do you know how many people that have started or caused fires have been caught? I suspect if you did, it would be in this report, but it's not. You need your collective administrative and political minds to focus on an interdisciplinary approach, not by punishing the third-party property owner. And we know, and it doesn't have to be repeated, every time there is a fire, you're putting your fire department at risk. So this is a serious problem, and congratulations for taking the initiative. Yeah. Property and development. Demolition permits have to be issued quicker. Building and development permits have to be issued quicker. Rezoning applications have to occur. Your city takes a rezoning or a permit application and puts it into its own little vacuum, and then the world goes on around it without any consideration of the other factors. You have a new director. The new director, part of its mandate, if it isn't already, that you've applied to it, needs to immediately work to speed up the process. Property owners, and your report correctly identifies this, if the penalty is too high, are going to walk away. And we've seen that. One lady who owns a property as an individual tried renovating the property for 3 to 4 times. I think on the 4th time she finally gave up. There were 3, 4 fires in there. It's not for a lack of trying. How safe are our streets? That's a question that we all need to be concerned about. Our governments, and here particularly municipal, need to be supportive to create a safe and quick environment for property owners either to demolish or renovate or demolish and build new. That has to happen. If you can demolish some of these buildings quicker, then guess what? It's one less fire. Your system, and I understand, I believe our Councillor Gilroy was working on it, and I think it was passed, but the permit process for demolition can be speeded up. But the permits need to be issued quicker. Here's what you need, here's the submission, comes in, and within a day or two, you should have your permit. That's one way to immediately get through the problem. Your revised bylaw, as I mentioned, there was no consultation. It needs to treat all property owners the same. It identifies providing help for additional,
3 minutes.
thank you.
Extension, can you do it in two, Mr. Potansky?
I will do it as quick as I can. I'm getting through it.
Okay, we'll
So-
give you 2 minutes extension, thank you.
Okay.
All in
Thank-
favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Okay. So the revised bylaw, no consultation, needs to treat all property owners the same. You treat, or you want to provide and give a special preferential treatment for non-share corporations versus share corporations or individual property owners. Your report identifies where the problem buildings have occurred, who's been the owner. And non-share corporations have been 2 out of the total number. All property owners need to be treated the same. The benefits given to one should be benefits given to all. You're talking about a refund process. The refund process starts with, or an appeal process, starts with pay your money, then we'll hear an appeal, and then if we decide to give you an appeal, we'll give you some money back. Isn't that kind of backwards and creating unnecessary bureaucracy? File your appeal, have your case be heard, and then if you owe money, pay the bill. If you don't owe any money, we don't have to go through a refund. That makes sense. It's straightforward. You have a criteria for exemption, right? And, you talk about, if it's on the building list, if there's something else. Well, the key part here is to be adding to that exemption list. Has work been undertaken? Yes, it may be recognized as a vacant boarded-up building, but is work being undertaken? If work is being undertaken, then why are you charging or billing someone that's trying to comply and build it to the work? If it's a money issue, they will get it. They're committed to doing it. If there's no work going on, then fine, apply the bill. But if they're working at it, if there's permits being issued, then don't charge them. Another minute and I'll be done.
Okay, can you wrap it up in 2 or 3 sentences?
Give me 10.
7, go.
Go. So the appeal process, you need to have it as a public, transparent process. Right now, it's going into the bureaucratic rabbit hole. If you're going to appeal, have a report, allow your administration to publicly state why they gave someone an appeal or why they denied it. Right now, there's an appeal process that they're proposing, and no one's going to know the reasons why Bob got an appeal, successful appeal, and Mabel didn't. It needs to be a public process. And then how does it get to the council level? The report is silent. How do we get in front of our elected councillors so they can make that appeal or hear it? And then finally, adding it to the third property or adding it to the property taxes, it's different than the water bill. The water bill is a charge caused by you or your tenants for whom you're responsible for at law while they're in that building. Adding it to the property taxes right now because a third party starts a fire is ethically unacceptable. And I don't even know in law if you can hold someone accountable for creating damage. You're double victimizing the victim.
Thank you.
And having said that, councillors, I think I can conclude.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Just a couple questions. Thank you for presenting today. Did you know that we have made it easier for property owners to demolish their building? We made substantial changes as a council within the last year or so, a year and a half. It used to be there was a kind of a lengthy process to get a demolition permit. Now we have authorized the director of the department to grant demolition permits just for this very reason, to make it easier for property owners who need to demolish their properties to demolish their properties. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Can you tell me the length of time it will take the director to issue that permit?
I don't have that information right now, but we have made it easier, and so
I can advise you, Mr. Mayor, that your department has taken significant amount of time, and I'm thinking of one property that was burnt in 2023, last November. And so they've been trying to get work done, and the permits are still taking a long time
For demolition?
for demolition. And I've talked to other people who have tried to use a demolition company, and they're telling me that the demolition time is still 4 to 6 weeks off.
So can, specific to that then, can you have yourself or those property owners send another email or contact the department again to see the status of that, and even CC your area councillor on that as well? Do we want to get properties that need to be demolished? We want them to be demolished as quickly as possible.
Mr. Mayor, respectfully, direct your administration to go through its applications for demolition and let you know how many have started and what the time length is between issue or application and issue.
You've made a comment about treating all property owners the same, which certainly, you know, on the books, we need to do that. We are doing that. Would you agree, though, that not all all property owners act the same? There are some property owners who are sitting on their property. Properties need to be redeveloped. There are some property owners who haven't moved. They've been sitting on property for a length of time, and they're boarded derelict properties. We have close to 700 derelict properties in the city of Winnipeg. Some of it is because property owners are not doing what they need to do to redevelop those properties. And so, yes, we have a problem with arson. Yes, we have a problem with people involved in criminal intent. But would it be fair to say, would you agree that any property sitting boarded up for a length of time becomes a target and becomes susceptible to fires?
I think you've asked a couple questions there. So one of them, I think I mentioned, I do agree that there are absentee owners that do need the long arm or the short arm, however you want to look at it, of the administration or council to get those buildings cleaned up. And I can think of one building on, and we all know it, and I'm pretty sure Councillor Buwadi would have seen it, and it's still sitting in some form there, the property on Lily Street just off of Henderson Highway heading northbound. There was a big green building. It sat boarded and vacant up for years. It caused a fire, and now there's a pile of rubble there that hasn't properly been cleaned. Absolutely. We need that support, not only for the safety, but for the value of every property owner adjoining or within that neighborhood. Absolutely. But, and I shouldn't say but you mentioned some of the property owners are the problem, not all of them. And we shouldn't be using the proverbial cannon when a fly swatter is necessary. We don't have to go after all of them. We don't have to punish them all. We have to look at their individual situations, and then we have to have effective and responsible public policy decisions that are recorded and presentable and made available in a transparent fashion so that we can weed out the good from the bad.
The final thing I will
Yes,
say
sir.
then, just on this, is you've raised the matter of the work of the police service and the fire department investigating fires, and Chief Schmidt will be available. We're going to have him on when this item comes up for discussion. We're going to have the chief available, ask the chief some questions related to updates. I believe he's got some good updates as far as the good work that police and fire are doing together to go after these individuals, identify those that are, you know, purported to or believed to be causing some of this issue. So thank you. I'll turn it to some other councillors for questions if you have any at all. Councillors? Okay. All right.
So,
Thank you very much.
So, and if I just may add to your comment right there about the work of the chief, one of the comments I didn't get to add, there should be, this item for, you should take away or eliminate the old bylaw, and what you should do is put a 6-month moratorium on the new bylaw, bring together the affected people so we can all sit down and work through a particular bylaw and bring a resolution. Bring the affected parties to the table, okay? Bring some property owners, bring neighborhood people, bring your service providers, so we can all sit down and spend 6 months. I'd be happy to volunteer my time. You know, we're all volunteers in our community, and thank you for the councils that have supported initiatives such as Westland and others. But we can do a lot of work together, and I think this is one of them that really needs that focus.
Thank you very much.
you. Thank you, councilors.
Good day, Mr. Prasansky. Thank you.
Our next delegation is Kelly Rybeck, to be heard with respect to reports 3, 5, and 8.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors, clerks, thank you very much. Item 3, the Workforce Management Audit Report, just a brief comment on that. Number 1 is it's a verbal report from the CAO, which we look forward to seeing. I do find it challenging that we at least could not get the crib notes in advance to encourage engagement, because on a day-to-day basis, this is your number 1 issue. That this could define your term, and the outcome of it will affect the city operations in perpetuity. That if for 2 years from now, you could say, look what we've done, that we have started to move towards a high-performance culture. That is not the case right now. And I just want, this is your biggest priority outside of your mega projects and budgeting, that we need as taxpayers greater value for the taxes we pay, which will also allow you to do more beyond what you're doing today. And you can do more without having to have a budget increase. And I've been through this in my workplace. Not only did it better the company, it bettered the leader, it bettered the employee, it bettered the customer. This is invaluable, and it is so much more than just everyone getting an annual performance review. This will define your term. And I appreciate that it's on the agenda. I look forward to the CAO's comments, but I do hope in future that we can at least get the notes. As per several other agenda items, that it's a verbal report. You cannot have engagement on verbal reports. So I look forward to that, but please give it your utmost, and if you want to learn about it, there's opportunities, and I would love to have a one-on-one discussion on how it transformed our workplace, of which actually you're all customers of, and you benefit from it. Okay, a culture shock is culture change, and embrace it. Number 5, the customer service and wait time improvements within 311 service. They're asking for a 90-day, up to a 90-day extension. And here's my challenge on this. Many of you know, 20 years of my career was in call centers as a supplier, supporter, and primarily as a leader. I know how call centers work. I've given some of you a primer on call center leadership and management. The challenge of this reverts back to October of 2021, when the CEO came and said, you approved a 90-day report on how they're going to improve 911 service. That was in October. January shows up, we need a 60-day extension. Granted. March shows up, we need a 60-day extension. Council pushed back and said, you got 30. You've had enough time to do it. The reason that this is requiring an extension is just because the negotiations taking place now on the $1 million that's budgeted in the QP agreement that was signed off on addressing lower wages. That's the reason they're asking for an extension. That is such a small component on what they are to report and deliver on. That, in a performance culture, would have been only a footnote because it's a small percentage of the budget amount. They could have identified everything else they're going to do and then put in a range or a footnote, plus or minus, because to address what's the outcome of this negotiations. It's not about what they're going to do, but we go back to culture, going back to that October 21 example. We could have already been seeing, from this meeting, you could have directed them to start implementing improvements. But now it could be held for up to 90 days only because of a small percentage of the budget item on negotiations. I phone 311 frequently for various reasons, not only with my background, but with my experiences with 311. It is still, 2 years later, 3 years later, hit and miss. Do you get a quality operator, service clerk, or do you get a poor one? And the poor one is maybe not even their fault. They could be inadequately trained. There could be other issues there. Peace on that. My last call for a very simple call that should have only taken end to end, from beginning to end, 2 minutes, I was placed on hold for 10 minutes. Evidence of there's still big issues. I'm encouraging you from this request, hold them to 30 days. They should be here with November. And if the negotiations are not done, they don't have the answer on that, it's a footnote. And let's move on and let's get things done beyond, not holding up for less than probably 2% of their budget. Okay? The last item, living wage. I've spoken twice on this. It's been on the agenda for a while. It was last held over for 30 days. As Councillor Browadi said, they still need to get a handle on item C, on how that addresses the funded organizations, on enforcing a living wage on them. The report has no new information. I don't see a price tag on any one of these items. And we look at A, B, and C. City employees, some of those positions, their first pay increment puts them into that living wage number. There are positions there, and the people that fill them, and the seasonality of it, or the part-time status of it, not applicable to living wage. Item B, how are you going to enforce that on contractors and subcontractors to prove that they are paying a living wage if in fact you do this? Number two, with respect to item B, your contract costs are going to go up. So taxes are going to go up, or you have to cut, or you're going to continue onward with your deficit. Examples of janitorial service, food service, those types of things. It's not just, this has been discounted saying, well, it's the construction industry, they pay more than that anyways, it's not applicable. Yes, it is. But how can you actually enforce it? And what are your contract costs going to go up? C, organizations receive city funding. I am on the board of one of those organizations. 17 weeks were open in the summer, 3 employees. If this goes through, I'm going to come to you and say we need $4,500 more just to pay that. And we're only 3 employees for 17 weeks. What's the entire scope of that? The bigger impact on that is this could affect hundreds of employees of all the organizations you fund. That's museums, parks, everyone from the grant intake program, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's it going to take away from their programs? That if we're feeding kids, we're giving them recreational resources, this money, if you don't increase the grant intake program, which you just restored $2.1 million with out of budget, what's going to be taken out? Who's going to suffer? Okay, we're going to allow them to pay employees more. We're going to have to, but without funding them more, that means we're going to reduce their programming. We're going to reduce the food they provide. We're going to reduce the number of people vulnerable in the city that they serve. And again, even though it was held over, there's no new information. There isn't a price to this. The campaign held to a 3.5% tax increase. There's other challenges there. What is this going to do? And go back to what I referred to on the other item. There's $1 million being negotiated to address any shortfalls in any positions, but not every position is applicable to what is defined by one organization as the living wage. And also remind you from last month, the General Council of Winnipeg Community Centers in their 3-year business plan stated 9 community centers did not receive their supplement for janitorial services because they pay a living wage, just because minimum wage has gone up. It's gone up a lot in the last 3 years. $15.80 now. If you're now required to pay $19.21 for that kind of work, how many community clubs will not receive that supplement because the money's not there for the General Council of Winnipeg Community Centers? That's another impact. And as you do these things, and if property taxes go up and costs go up, yeah, there may be some folks going to make more money, but they're going to face more challenges. And people come to the city of Winnipeg to work because of the pay. Remind you, there's over 4,200 employees that are making $75,000 plus per year. They come for the pay and they come for the benefits, not because of the culture, going back to workforce management. Why do people leave? It's not the pay. They come in because for the pay they're getting, it's not the workplace they deem acceptable, or it's the lack of leadership. Good people leave because of poor leadership. That is known. Then they go, and then some jobs, it is, you don't stay long, you start at $18 an hour, but you're still actively looking to improve, and there's somebody else, another employer that provides more because it's a different job. We also have your challenge with progression plans, succession plans. But I'm just disappointed that month over month this agenda item hasn't changed, and there's not new information provided because it's held over. But I don't think there's a good grapple on the costs here. My time is up. If I could suspend rules if I can make one very quick comment on regarding the item on the last delegate.
So motion one for a minute. Okay, Councilor Sanchez.
Appreciate
all in
that very
favor?
much.
Aye, go ahead.
Thank you very much. We talk about burnt-out buildings, demolition, and boarded-up buildings. One of the challenges is the year-over-year annual renewal of boarded-up buildings, because some property owners can sit on them. They have the means to sit on them. One example is Douglas Park Road, right after the back lane. Mayor Gillingham is very familiar with this one, in that building, it's a single-story home on a very large lot. Person wanted to put up an apartment. They lost their rezoning application. It's been boarded up for 7 years because one city employee is allowed to allow the renewal of the boarded up permit. That has got to change. People should be given a defined time if they're going to board it up and deal with it later, not to let it go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years and then be a target for vandalism and arson during that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you for your presentation. Just, you probably maybe or maybe not aware, as of next month, our auditor will be bringing forward updates on the status of the workforce management audit. So we'll hear the verbal today from our interim CAO, and then our auditor, as of November, will be coming forward with that. So it will be a written presentation, for sure.
Okay.
Good.
And I think even in this chambers, workforce management can improve. And I'll put one. This lamp is useless. Nobody uses it. It's in the way. We need more space for our documents. I would hope the next time I appear, this thing is gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
That might be an extension of 180 days on that, but that's fine. Thank you very much. All right.
That's not
Thank you.
surprising.
Okay, our
Madam Clerk.
next delegation is David Grant, to be heard with respect to 7 reports on the agenda. David is joining us via Zoom. David, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation. David, if you can unmute yourself, you'll have up to 10 minutes for your presentation. If not, the committee will move on to the next delegation and we'll try you again after.
I'm pushing the buttons. I think that's finally done it.
There you go.
Good morning. Welcome. Go ahead. Oh, maybe we'll come back to you, Mr. Grant. We seem to be having some technical issues. I don't know if it's on your end or our end. So if we can come back to Mr. Grant after our next delegation, please. Thank you.
Our next delegation is Gord Delbridge, to be heard with respect to living wage framework. And I understand Gord will have someone else presenting with him.
Hello, I want to thank everyone for giving me this opportunity. Myself and Neil Harney will share our 10 minutes, and I'll get started right away. So I just want to state that I'm not here to negotiate wages with you. What we're asking you to do is implement the policy, a policy that you had implemented in the our Winnipeg document. You have a living wage frame, or you have a poverty framework piece in there that I think was very important. You all supported that, and I think that's important to remember. Living wage for the city of Winnipeg is not $19.21 an hour. It's $19.21 an hour for the province of Manitoba when we take into consideration employers that don't have benefits and other provisions. I know the mayor has brought this up numerous times, that the city of Winnipeg does have benefits, and so that has been taken into consideration. It's $17.87 an hour for the city of Winnipeg. We know that the costs of being grossly inflated by various people that have spoken to this issue in the millions and billions and whatever they're coming up with. We did get an administrative report. If you read the back of that report, it does state that they're looking at it to be more realistic and under $500,000. We think that number is too high. We are currently in negotiations with the city of Winnipeg on a wage adjustment which covers the very few classifications that fall under a living wage with the city of Winnipeg. I think there's 11 classifications in total. We could use a small portion of that 1 million to address that for the city of Winnipeg. We did present the city of Winnipeg with a proposal on that. The response we got back, though, was that we want to not be negotiating living wage here. We should be just looking at the wage adjustments. And so once again, I would agree, we can't negotiate what a living wage is. That's a policy that you put in place, and a living wage is determined by the current state of our the cost to live within our current communities. We know there's many municipalities right across the country that have become living wage employers. Everyone talks about how difficult this could be and how do you implement this and how do you put this in an RFP. Well, you just merely put it in an RFP. I mean, how does a minimum wage monitored? You put all kinds of provisions with an RFP. You can put a provision in the RFP stating that if they're going to perform work on behalf of the city of Winnipeg, that they pay a living wage. You've done it before. You've done it before when you implemented a minimum wage. Council adopted a minimum wage of $15 an hour, and so you were able to do it before. So a lot of people say that there's going to be a cost involved in this. To the contrary, it's not a cost at all. I would say that this is an investment that you're likely to see a pretty high return on. If you look at the cost of turnover, recruitment, the level of service that's being provided by city employees, there is a very small segment of city employees that are paid less than a living wage. We can address those recruitment retention issues. We see it in 311. That was mentioned here earlier today. I often, hear all this discussion around the issue of poverty in the city of Winnipeg and what's going to be done. And, I often wonder how sincere that is if we're not even willing to address the issue of poverty within your own workforce. That really concerns me, especially when we know that the cost is so minimal and it's more likely to be an investment that's going to net positive returns with your workforce. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Neil. You may have some questions for Neil as well. This is an issue that does concern me, that this has come back to council and the EPC. I don't know if it's the 4th or 8th time. I've kind of lost track of it now. I've never seen a motion ever be kicked back to EPC that many times. I know that the majority of Winnipeggers would like to see this with overwhelming results in probe research polls that support a living wage. And I know that your administration supports it, city administration. I've spoken to them. And I know that the majority of council supports it as well. And so I hope that you as EPC at some point in time before we kick it back here again and again, come to realize what Winnipeggers want, what the majority of council wants, and some of your administration. But I'll turn it over to Neil.
Thanks. Morning, Mayor and members of EPC, and thanks to Gord and the EPC for providing me the time to speak this morning. As you know, I'm Niall Harney. I work at the CCPA. We provide, since 2009, we've been calculating the living wage for cities in Manitoba, including Winnipeg, Brandon, and Thompson. We make all of our calculations available online. All of our data is publicly available, and we use the same living wage framework that's used across the country and across North America. Since 2009, we've been advocating for the living wage to become the minimum standard for employers and governments across Manitoba. And as Gord noted, the amended living wage for the city of Winnipeg, although in the motion it talks about $19.21 an hour, it's really closer to $17.87. I just wanted to highlight some of our research from earlier this summer. Earlier this year, we found that close to 1 in 4 workers in Manitoba is earning less than a living wage, 24.6% of all workers in the province. That amounts to 171,000 workers who are earning less than what's required to meet someone's basic needs. Women and recent immigrants to Canada are disproportionately working for less than a living wage. And furthermore, workers who are earning less than a living wage are overwhelmingly educated and in the prime of their working years. We found in that research that 36.4% of workers earning less than a living wage had a child at home below the age of 18, making them just as likely as other workers to be supporting a child. I highlight this because this should be deeply concerning to all of us Winnipeggers who see the worsening effects of poverty across our city. As a large employer, grant funder, and purchaser in Winnipeg, the City of Winnipeg is in a unique position to provide leadership on citywide working standards by becoming a living wage employer and adopting a procurement policy that includes living wages. Using the higher estimate provided by the public service of $3 million, the cost of a living wage, which, as Gord noted, doesn't take into account some of the additional adjustments from benefits or the special wage adjustment. But even taking that large estimate and dividing it by the total operating and capital budget for 2024, it amounts to less than 0.1% of the city's budget. This is not going to make or break the city's deficit. This is about a choice of investing in our workforce and making a gesture towards living wages across our city. Finally, as the motion before us today points out, both the poverty reduction strategy and our Winnipeg 2045 identify the living wage as a tool to achieve poverty reduction, enable economic self-sufficiency, and community participation. And I wanted to highlight that again. So thank you for your time, and I welcome some questions.
Thank you. Any questions at all for our delegations? Okay, thanks. Thank you both. Thank you so much.
Okay, well,
Should we go to Kate Kaler before, because it's the same topic, maybe I'm wondering,
Sure.
before we go to Mr. Grant? Yeah, okay, thank you.
okay. Up next is Kate Kaler, and then following Kate, we'll return to David Grant.
Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Afternoon, I guess it is.
Oh,
Thank
yes,
you.
it is actually afternoon. As you all know me, I won't bother with the usual introduction, but I do want to be clear that today I'm speaking solely as a representative for the Social Planning Council of Winnipeg and not for the broader coalition that came together to address the community grants and the changes proposed, simply because there's been no time to consult, much less reach any sort of consensus with those members. So I'm here as Social Planning Council. Thank you again. By the way, though, I do want to say, and apologies to my coalition partners. I tasked myself with actually sending you a proper thank you note for your work on that file, and I have not to do it yet. It will be coming, but again, thank you for that work. However, with respect to the living wage framework, as SBCW wrote to Council in March, please accept the submission on the need for the City of Winnipeg to become a living wage employer. As per the Winnipeg Without Poverty, calling on the city to lead report published in 2018, it recommends that the City of Winnipeg should adopt a living wage policy that would commit to paying direct employees a living wage according to accepted national living wage standards and in partnership with key community stakeholders. Working with local living wage advocates to determine which city contracted and subcontracted services must be paid a living wage. Following the process, ensuring future contracts in those service areas include a legally binding clause requiring contracted service workers, including those working for subcontract companies, to be paid the living wage for Winnipeg. As to Gord's comments, Mr. Delbert's comments, there are ways certainly of the city negotiating those. For the record, the living wage, as published annually by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, as now referenced, I just wanted to add that it's also done by 2 economists with doctorate degrees and is also peer-reviewed. I do also want to take a moment to highlight this language, working with local living wage advocates to determine which city contracted and subcontracted services must be paid a living wage. We, as did the other organizations involved in Winnipeg Without Poverty, saw then that this recommendation could have an adverse ripple effect on the not-for-profit sector through city grants. So this is why my comments today are only with respect to the framework rather than in full support. For that, I ask that the 3rd clause that would require anyone receiving funds from the city must be a living wage employer be removed at this time. The reality is that the not-for-profit charitable sector is often not funded sufficiently to be a living wage employer. The City of Winnipeg supplies, through grants, both large and small amounts to various struggling organizations that assist Mayor and Council to work towards meeting the city's charter responsibilities. To place a living wage requirement on these organizations could further put their operations at risk and could negate the work done to develop a better and fully transparent relationship with the sector through the community grants review process we all just agreed needed further consideration. And we have Mr. Armbruster's assurances that discussions will be held in 2025, and I'm very much looking forward to those. However, there is no reason a staged approach could not be considered. I do understand why that third clause was initially thought necessary at this time. I enter into all agreements as in they are for the future generations, not for the people who are around the table at the time, because generally there's been understanding built before you even get to the table. But the agreements then need to be crystal clear. So I understand why it's there, but it's just not practical at this time. The city itself and its for-profit contractors can and should do better, though. As one of the largest employers in Manitoba, the city should lead by example and commit to paying your employees a living wage. While the province has made some progress on raising the minimum wage, it is now still just $15.80 an hour, and it's not keeping pace with inflation. As part of the old campaign, the Fight for 15, I can tell you while it was a great slogan, that number is just so 2018. We all know what has happened in the interim. As we reported in our last Campaign 2000 Child and Family Report Card, poverty eradication, there are ways, so where's the will? The most recent data from Harvest Manitoba demonstrated how difficult these times are for Manitobans and their families. Over 50,000 people attend a food bank somewhere in Manitoba every month. Harvest Manitoba has seen a 150% increase in clients since 2019, with a 30% increase in just the past year. 49% are under the age of 18, 40% of Harvest Manitoba clients are employed, 68% of clients are women. Of special note, women who remain the predominant leaders of single-parent families are more likely to access food banks and work more part-time, lower-paying jobs when compared to men. They are more likely to face food insecurity due to factors such as a lack of accessible childcare and flexible work opportunities that can accommodate caregiving responsibilities. Hence, the multiple low-paying minimum jobs that just don't pay enough. Low wages, by definition, affects spending power, and that impacts the economy. And what we know is that low-wage earners spend the majority of their money locally. They don't have the resources to park their money in investments, for example. And in case it needs to be said, a living wage does not put anyone on easy street. It simply allows for more than the bare necessities of food, clothing, and shelter, which for a single parent, for example, our minimum wage does not even cover. A livable wage allows for additional funds that can promote social inclusion and make higher education or even a dignified retirement a more attainable goal. When people have reason to hope, then resilience in the face of hard times has a better chance of seeing people through. Safety is, of course, always a fraught topic. We know that poverty is a driver of crime. Acknowledging that does not mean that crime is understandable, as in acceptable. However, we do have to understand the convergence. Having attended the Retail Crime Summit a couple of weeks ago, I continue to be concerned. The emphasis and vast majority of resources are going to responses to crime, such as policing, and apparently coming changes for security guards, with only vague promises to address the root causes of crime, and those still seem to be, in the eyes of too many, addictions and mental health, without acknowledging poverty as an exacerbating and even a lead cause of those conditions. At the summit, much was made of bail, and that many see the current bail system as the problem. It isn't. The number of people kept incarcerated pending trial or sentencing has not fluctuated much in years. The vast majority we have incarcerated today are on remand status. There is, of course, the larger and perhaps seemingly more esoteric question of are we actually innocent until proven guilty in this country? But that is given short shrift by some because the broader and wealthier among us see themselves more likely to be victims of crime as opposed to perpetrators, and believe if they are wrongly accused of a crime, then the system will work for them. In most cases, for the more affluent, it does. However, it does cost to defend oneself, which is why there is inherent racism in the justice system. We all know who is overrepresented in poverty in this province: Indigenous peoples, Black, people of color, and recent immigrants who may or may not face racial issues, but do end up in low-wage jobs as they first try to settle here. However, just a clear and pragmatic view of the situation demonstrates that when we return people to the exact same conditions that led them to committing a crime in the first place, we then see the exact same response and results. And keeping them in jail is not only not the answer for the vast majority of people, it actually makes the problem worse. Both the judge and the Crown's president at the Retail Summit stated that jail does harm. For those who believe punishment must hurt, there is no real answer except to point out that that has been our approach all along, and we are not any safer as a result. There are better approaches. When I was at John Howard Society, we began a bail support and supervision program designed to address the risk factors that were keeping people from getting bail on their own. Despite early success, including helping people go back to school or find steady employment, under and unreliable funding destabilized the program and eventually had to close. My point? There are better and more cost-effective solutions, but it is always a matter of where we put our money. The city has and will continue to face an ever-ballooning police, fire, and paramedic budget unless we get serious about addressing poverty. Committing to being a living wage employer is one thing it can do to demonstrate leadership and a commitment to evidence-based approaches to creating a better Winnipeg for everyone. SBCW used to have a slogan, "We all do better when we all do better." On the surface, it can be taken solely as another version of a high tide floats all boats, but that actually wasn't the intent. We actually all have to do better for everyone's sake. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kate, any questions at all? Okay, thanks again for your presentation. Have a good day. Okay.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we'll go back to David Grant. David, if you're available, you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you. I was having a problem that I had pushed the buttons to unmute myself, and it was taking quite a few seconds. So thankfully, I was able to do that early this time. Thank you.
Thank you. We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Thank you. On Public Works topic 3, I am not in favor of the 180-day delay. It is profoundly wrong for EPC to consider this request after being reminded of their obligations under the law. Does anyone have an official written opinion from city lawyers on continuing to operate PE in violations of the violation of the terms of the law? It's my profound wish that staff will make use of this new 180-day delay to actually begin the first annual report on PE, its safety implications, by city staff. Please recall that long before the latest delay, city had been required to publish a report on each photo enforcement deployment every year. How is it possible to ignore this aspect of enabling legislation? Governance topic 3, meeting schedule. As we head into another year, we again see EPC set to meet too soon after the SPCs. Combined with a plethora of verbal-only reports, this serves to hide, in effect, city hall business from public view, public scrutiny, and comment. Please have staff move EPC and council meetings to be at least 5 days after those meetings, which are expected to send business to these senior levels of meetings. There would be no need to waive rules on timing if the schedule were to enable full compliance. On governance topic 1, the integrity report. I'm in agreement with aspects of this report, including the definition of gift. I believe that the commissioner should be asked to include those gifts provided by outsiders that help fund city operations, even when no funds flow directly to a member of council. Such gifts should be scrutinized. They may become problematic in certain cases, such as when they involve inappropriate actions by one or more members of council. I'm in general agreement with all the changes made to the code so far. I believe, though, that the code could go further. Since the outcome of complaints are generally for the educational benefit of all, there should be no election holiday, and the 60-day limit should be extended. A one-year period would be consistent with some other codes. Since all complaints are handled in confidence, the majority of council, who do absolutely nothing wrong, would not be affected by extending this coverage. On governance topic 2, community committees and advisory groups. It's crucially important that council stay in touch with residents. This business item recognizes that. A functional advisory or residents association is one of the best ways to do this. Too often, city polling is aimed to get support for an idea. The target market for these polls also tends to skew the results because it's not the same target as the advisory groups are made up of, the demographic. There is significant room for improvement in these relationships. The residents groups should be provided with a bit more info, if possible. These groups can be used to provide the councillor with a glimpse of public opinion. They can be the link that makes representative government seem more democratic in between elections. When a member of such a group presents concerns, obviously they should be taken seriously, New policies seem to be weakening the means by which council collects and uses delegation comment. A healthy delegation system is a valuable tool for members of council in making good decisions, even though sometimes it takes up half a day listening to dozens of presenters. Reports which are made verbally and reports which arrive late further weaken the delegation process. These are all good tools for decision making, and I'm pleased to see Governance 2 on your agenda. The Winnipeg 150 verbal report. Once again, it's disappointing to see that there's no written report on this topic on the agenda. On topic 7, your report number 7, it's disappointing to see this 180-day delay. Looking on the bright side of the delay, perhaps this is long enough for staff to do a full reporting. Whenever there is money unspent on a major city project, the Arts Council in the next 180 days can help provide with ideas. In those 180 days, perhaps examples of major works of sculpture, like the Rights Museum and the interior of Hydro's head office, will be considered. Staff can use this ample delay to ponder the fact that concrete, as it comes out of plywood forms, has been recognized around the world as a thing of beauty. We are blessed to have this extra time. Let's make good use of it. And on Water 1, there's a note there for you. While this final report's been delayed another 180 days, we learned last week that much of this work has been done on this topic. Even while we all wait for the 180 days, this info should be reported to EPC and to the public. Last week, we learned that staff has applied for funding from EM, Efficiency Manitoba. With due respect, I ask that the city ask Efficiency Manitoba to report on some of the city buildings while we wait for the staff report. Doing so would reduce the chances of another 180-day delay and better meet the mandates of EPC. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Grant. Appreciate it. Any questions at all? Seeing none, thank you. Thanks again for your patience. Have a good day.
Okay. Thank you.
That concludes our delegations.
Okay, moving now into the reports. Moving to report number 1, which is a monthly update on supportive housing, addiction, and social action indicators. And I'm wondering, Mr. CAO, there we go. We have Maura Gear here, who will give us a report, verbal update on this. I'm really excited to see that we had, among other things, a target of 8,000 units to be approved by the end of November. We're, I think, as of today, at least 8,843. So that's really great. Indicative of, I think, a movement for departments to continue to see themselves as, housing departments, each department to see that. I think we need to continue, I know we need to continue in that vein and more just see that kind of culture and mindset adopted within every department. But looking forward to your update today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think you've indicated the highlight of this report is, you set a challenge for the public service to reach 8,000 new housing units by November 30th, and here we are on October 16th, and we've exceeded that target already. So I want to place bets within the public service how much higher we get by the November reporting date. So that's great news, and I think that there's great collaboration right now with the public service, helping expedite development and getting new housing built. Lots of good results. We have, within our Housing Accelerator Fund, we have a concierge team, so we're doing a lot of work with the community. And I really look forward to December EPC is when we come forward with our next report on what programming we're going to launch next. So some good stuff to come within the next couple of months.
Great. Any questions at all? Comments? Okay, yeah, no, onward and upward. We'll continue on with this, and I think there's a few improvements that we're looking at or items on today's agenda that represent, hundreds more units. And if we get them through council, that's another big number of units that will be approved by the end of this month, which is great, so adding to the total. Thank you. Okay, moving on, motion then, Councillor Duncan to receive this report. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Item number 2, monthly update on programming and activities for Winnipeg 150. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of APC, we have Felicia Wiltshire coming, Manager of Customer Service Communications from the CAO's office, going to give you an update. I know there's been a lot of good things happening in the last month.
Good morning, welcome. Good afternoon. Oh, yes, good afternoon. I keep saying morning, it's just habit. Good afternoon it is. Thank you.
So short update this month. Last week, we announced the 150 recipients of the Winnipeg 150 medals that are designed to honor some of our remarkable people in the community. Residents were nominated by members of the public, and medals are being handed out to 8 residents in each ward across the city. And the mayor is also handing out 30 medals to residents from all over the city. In addition to the medals, each recipient is having a tree planted in their honor at a park within the ward. As of this morning, we have completed medal ceremonies and tree planting events in 8 city wards, and the remaining will take place over the next 2 weeks. Upcoming, we are in the process of planning a Winnipeg 150 hockey game, where elected officials and public servants from the city of Winnipeg will take on elected officials and public servants from the province of Manitoba. We will have more information to release on this game soon, including information on how the public can attend and watch this friendly competition take place. We are also continuing our Winnipeg 150 partnerships with our local sports teams, and on November 19th, we will have Winnipeg 150 Day at the Winnipeg Jets game, and on December 22nd, we will have Winnipeg 150 Day at the Manitoba Moose game. And finally, the Archives Touring Exhibit, which features 8 panels that take you through the city's history, is continuing to move around the city. One is currently at Polo Park Shopping Centre and the other at Henderson Library, and one of the exhibits will be moving into the St. Boniface Library on November 1st. And that concludes my update for today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it seems that things have really ramped up on Winnipeg 150 in these last few weeks and months, and I know certainly those that are receiving medals and having a tree planted in their name are really, really excited. And so that's been good to see council colleagues host those events in the ward. The hockey game between the province and the city is going to be exciting. Winner gets to determine the terms of a new funding agreement. So I'd like to announce today that Adam Lowry and Nick Ehlers have just joined the Water Waste Department, which is good. In all seriousness, Councillor Lukes.
I want to thank the department, whoever did the writing up for the medals that were handed out, and the research on that did an incredible job. It was very nice. The people, I had an event on last Saturday. It was very beautifully written, very well researched, and I just want to thank whoever did that, because that was a lot of work.
Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was, I will definitely give kudos. That's Dennis Rogers, who's our corporate writer in my department, and he goes above and beyond when he's tasked with those
Very
type
beautiful.
of things.
Yeah.
I want to take an opportunity to thank all those involved in putting together in any aspect the Mayor's Ball and all those who come. It was an outstanding event, and so I really appreciate the effort everybody put into making that just a fantastic night in support of our performing arts. So thank you. More to come. Appreciate that. Thank you. Motion to receive this item. Thank you very much. Councillor Santos, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item number 3, Workforce Management Audit Report Implementation Update. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sherwood Armbruster, our interim CAO, for his report. There is a handout being distributed right now, I think, of your notes. So go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, members of EPC. I want to start by thanking you for the confidence and the trust that you've placed in me with this interim appointment. This Friday marks 16 weeks to the day that I've been on this journey. And I want to say that not because it's about me, but in the spirit of bringing forward individuals within the public service and the many people that are represented in the work that I'm going to provide in a 7 to 8 minute summary here. Verbally, my day today started with Dennis Rogers will hate it that I'm putting his name, but he's an absolute sage and representative of the magnificent members of the public service, and spent an hour with him this morning going through this and many others. I'm seated next to, as you know, Deputy CAO Moira Gear to present this report and take questions. I also want to acknowledge our city auditor, Jason Edgert, who's been a wonderful colleague and is here today. And we've worked together to taken his advice and direction in being able to provide this update. As you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, we were asked to provide a verbal update, but I wanted to, in the spirit of transparency and accountability, provide a verbal snapshot so that we do also have something on the record to go along with my verbal comments and notes here today. Everything summarized in the snapshot and in my comments, again, is not my own work. It's the contributions of many, a significant team effort of multiple departments, members of the public service, work that's being done on top of busy schedules, pressing workloads. I want to particularly, though, thank acting Human Resources Director Tara Chattel and her team in Human Resources for rising to an occasion of interim leadership. Also Jonathan Hildebrand in my office, Manager of Strategic Planning, who've gone above and beyond in coordinating the work of the public service. So with that, I want to say that I'm pleased, in summary, to say that the public service has implemented 5 of the 13 recommendations. We've hit the ground running over the course of the past 3 months, noting, of course, that like most Winnipeggers and Manitobans, 2 of these months were July and August, when significant number of the public service, like other families and individuals in the province, take time to be with their families. Also want to acknowledge that while much has been accomplished, there is a significant work ahead. I don't want to minimize that. Work is actively underway on all of the remaining 8 recommendations. And you will see on the snapshot within the recommendations that have been implemented, as well as those in progress. Just to quickly highlight recommendations that have been implemented, including recommendations number 2, number 3, number 8, number 9, and number 13. Those that had deadlines of Q3 2024, 8 and 9 were met, and those 2, 3, and 13 that had deadlines of Q4 24, we exceeded the deadlines were put before us. I hope this, all of this underscores the seriousness with which we are taking the audit and its recommendations. And I want to provide, in addition to the overview, I want to provide a little bit of additional context and information on some of the recommendations before we take any questions. Specifically, number 4. Which recommended that we enhance job description monitoring and updating of the process. I want to highlight that as of today, all members of the senior management team, job descriptions have been updated and approved. All job descriptions within my office, the CAO's office, have been updated and approved. All 4 statutory officer job descriptions within the City of Winnipeg have been updated and approved. These 30 job descriptions I highlight as from our senior management team, the CAO's office, and the statutory office are merely representative of the work and the example that our leadership team has provided to the entire public service. Recommendation number 5 recommends that we develop a new performance review process. I'm happy to advise that work is well underway on this recommendation. As we are making good progress on completing and documenting individual performance reviews, as of today, 43% of employees eligible for a performance review this year have had it completed and documented within PeopleSoft. This represents 2,946 performance reviews that have been conducted and completed in the last 90 days. Work that is impressive, given some of the workarounds and context that has been provided, given the frailties of our legacy IT systems, of some of the manual documentation needs, paper filing, many field staff without ready access to Offices or PeopleSoft. But I want to advise you, Mayor, and members of EPC that in the last 90 days, following the audit's release, we have achieved significant progress, and we recognize that we still have significant work to do. But we have generated momentum, and we are changing the culture. We look forward to making system improvements in leading up throughout 2025 to meet the Q4 2025 deadline that is associated with this recommendation. Recommendation 5 recommends that goals, targets, key performance indicators be established at the employee level. I know this is something that is very important to many of you, and it is to us as well. The new annual performance templates now have specific sections that include these elements as part of performance reviews. That's a big step forward. Recommendation 7 identified challenges associated with large variable spans of control across the organization. We are currently reviewing this to identify the risks in areas, and there are a number of departments that have been identified with significant span of control issues, and this too is on track to be completed by Q4 of 2024. Recommendation 10 recommended we complete reviews of department field operations as originally directed by Council. I am pleased to report that a consultant has been retained. Work is underway within the Department of Public Works, and the review is scheduled to begin this week. Finally, I want to speak to recommendation number 11, which recommends that we develop a process to annually report on the Flexible Workplace Program. This has an implementation date of Q1 2025, so early next year. And I also know that Flexible Work Program is something that many of you are monitoring, and as you are aware, we are in the midst of changing this program in order to move towards more in-person interaction and opportunities and consistency throughout the organization to reflect the societal reality and the business needs of our organization. These changes, the changes with respect to recommendation number 11 will be effective in early January 2025. And as we've done in the past, monitoring of the effectiveness will continue. Moving forward, we've integrated flexible workplace arrangements into the performance review templates. This will allow leaders to review and report on employee performance, including remote work arrangements, at the same time. So, Mayor, with that, Mayor and members of Executive Policy, will conclude my verbal update. I'll thank you again for this opportunity and for the place that you've entrusted to me and to others to lead these important changes. This is incredibly important work. We don't take it lightly. We recognize that much has been achieved and that there is still lots to do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armbruster. This is good work, very good progress. You and Ms. Gear and the entire team that's been involved in making these changes within 90 plus days is appreciated, and it's good to see that work, is proceeding. So thank you collectively for your leadership and your effort here. So any comments or questions? Councilor Lukes.
Sure. So thank you very much for your update. I just got this a second ago and have just heard you, so that's great. I'm glad we're having these verbal updates. I mean, every time it's going to upset me, but it is what it is. To think that you got this done in 90 days is fantastic, right? It just makes it all the more appalling to think none of this was done before. It's probably one of the most horrific audit reports I've ever read here. There's been a few, but this is a bad one. It's good that we've done this. It's good that you're working on it. There's a lot of work left to do. It's just mind-boggling. I know that job performances reviews are not the only thing that help employees, but it's just incredible that senior management didn't even have that. But anyways, we've dealt with that issue, and we're moving on. So my question for you is regarding number 10. This is, I believe it's number 10 or number 5, but I'll give you the scenario, and you won't have that information, I'm sure, but I want you to get back to me. In one of the budget processes, we gave each department, I think it was $50,000. Councillor Rowlands had brought this up in one of our discussions. We had given each of the departments $50,000 to go about finding, doing an analysis of the field workers, because we had the scenario in PP&D where the field workers were roving around not doing their job, right? So I would like you in your next verbal update to come back to us and tell us some of that money was spent on something completely not related to what it was tagged to spend on. So I'd like you to come back in the next verbal update and tell us where that money is and what happened to it.
And I can address that,
Sure. Thank you.
Councillor Lukes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I am pleased to report, and I did touch on this briefly in my report, this recommendation number 10 with respect to the field reviews. There is $50,000 in the CAO's budget to complete a field review. So we have retained a consultant. I have some magnificent individuals, Jonathan Hildebrand, Michael Giles in innovation, working with Jim Berezowski in Public Works, and they are meeting this week, doing a field review within Public Works, exactly on point and in line with the mandate. So that is part of my update and part of the work that has, and it's a significant body of work that has been done to coordinate all of that. So I do look forward to a good report coming back and that report being shared with council.
So just so that I'm clear, my understanding was it was $50,000 per department. You're saying it's $50,000 in total?
Correct.
In total?
Per year, yeah.
Per year.
And you put an RFP out for this, or you just sole sourced it?
We requested from several different firms, and we made the selection.
So you put an RFP out?
We didn't issue an RFP. We had the authority. The department has the authority. We worked with procurement to award, but we did solicit proposals.
And the value
Within our
was for
office.
$50,000?
Correct.
So without an RFP, you can do that for
Correct.
$50,000?
We have the department has the authority, the department head has the authority
Okay.
to award.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions at this point? Again, great to see the progress. Look forward to the next update and our auditor's update as well in November. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Then, let's see, I think we are receiving this item, this verbal update as information at this point, right? Councilor Lukes? Would you like to move that?
Okay, we're on number 2 still?
Three.
3. So
yeah.
workforce management, sure. So I'll move it to receive it as information.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right. Item number 4, Councilor Lukes, on plain language, key performance.
Right, okay, so on item number 4, I had asked that we lay this over so that I could speak to the department a little bit more about it, because the recommendation that they were making, just let me pull this up here, sorry. My computer's somewhat frozen, okay. So the recommendation that they were making we had asked for KPIs to come back, and the recommendation that they were making was here we go, sorry. Sometimes these computers at City Hall or right in here freeze up. So they were to report back within 6 months on outlining what key performance indicators or performance metrics have been developed to see how the progress is being made. So the public service came back and said they want to use grade level readability score of public-facing written materials. That's how they're going to measure it, with grade level readability. Now, if you look at recent posting on the Government of Canada's website that talks about plain language, I don't know if the Government of Canada is one of the best examples to use, it talks about readability formulas, they're ineffective and counterproductive, and they listed multiple reasons why. So because I honestly didn't get time to sit down with the department this last month to go through this to try and get on the same page, I'm going to ask for another extension.
Okay, 30 days, 60 days?
30 days.
30 days extension, moved, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right. Item number 5, customer service and wait time improvements within the 311 service. Councilor Lukes,
Okay, well, you're hitting on all my favorite ones here.
extension request here.
Right, so this is an extension request. So we had this approved in the budget process back in, when did we approve the budget? I guess it was March, February, March? This was the
Right.
this was the 4-year budget one, right? I don't know, like, to me, 311 is our front line. It's the first point of contact that people have with the city, other than maybe calling the councillors directly. So, sure, I guess we'll have to approve an extension because it's not done, but if we want to be a customer service organization and we want to be moving ahead with customer service, 311 is where it all happens, where the magic happens. So it is rather disappointing to have to do an extension. Maybe the CAO can articulate why the extension. I mean, you've got something in here, you know, do you have any idea why they want an extension? It's related something to labor negotiations?
I think we will have Ms. Wiltshire come forward.
Sure.
Just if that's okay, Mr. CEO.
Sure. Yeah, Felicia here from Director of Customer Service Communications, all things 311.
I think you heard the question.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just let you go ahead and address that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so the reason that we're asking for the extension on this is because it is specifically asking us not just about improvements, but to break down how we spent the budget increase that we received in this budget. Right now, we have a portion of the budget set aside that's being dealt with as part of labor negotiations and special wage increases with QP. So we just felt it was maybe a little bit premature to disclose how much of my budget I have set aside because those negotiations are ongoing. That's the reason that we were asking for that extension. It just felt like it was a little bit in contravention of labor negotiations.
So I thought we were done the QP contract. What am I missing here that we're?
But there's a clause called special wage adjustment
Yes.
that is part of the agreed upon contract, which allows special
Right,
wage adjustments
right.
within departments where required. So, yeah.
So this negotiation has been going on for how long?
It's been going on for a few months now, and 311 staffs, particularly the CSR ones, are part of the wages that we're looking to negotiate to increase outside of the collective agreement.
Right, sure.
I think Councillor Brady had a comment related to the timeline. Councillor Brady?
Hey, I was pretty sure. I'm pretty sure there was something very specific in there that said that that wage adjustment happened 1 year after ratification of the agreement. That's my recollection. Don't hold me to that, but that's, I'm pretty sure that was in there.
Okay.
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 Thank you for your information. With that, Councillor Lutz?
Sure, I'll move the report to the Public Services recommendation.
Okay, move extension time then. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item number 6, amendments to the vacant buildings bylaw number 79, 2010, fire prevention bylaw 35, 2017, revised fee structure for vacant building fire response fees. I think members of the chief and others are here today for some information for us. And I'm wondering, Chief, if you wouldn't mind just addressing one of the questions the delegation raised related to the fire investigation branch and your staff's work with Winnipeg Police Service and any work that Scooby may be doing as well. So thank you.
Sure, good question and very timely. Joining me today, Assistant Chief Lisa Gilmore from our Community Risk Reduction Branch. So in terms of the question from delegation, there is a lot of ongoing work between the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service Fire Investigations Unit and the Winnipeg Police Service, and in particular, the Winnipeg Police Service Major Crimes Unit. It's within that unit that they have specialized officers for investigating arson-type incidents. And so the teams work very closely together. As you know, we also have recently brought on to the force Scooby, our accelerant detection canine, who we have received from the ATF in the United States. And we've talked previously about that program before. But what is important to note with Scooby arriving on the scene here in Winnipeg is, as the delegation indicated and referenced, a number of fires in our community. I can tell you today that with the assistance of Scooby and his handler, that we have seized a significant amount of evidence from fire incidents across the city. That evidence has been sent off to the crime lab with the RCMP National Crime Lab, and we're awaiting results. That in addition to the video evidence that our teams capture at these scenes. So we've heard before from ourselves and also the police service that these arson investigations do take time. So far this year, I believe they take time and they're very resource intense, and they rely heavily on the science and the evidence that's collected. And to date, I believe we've had, the police service has had four incidents where arrests have been made. So that's promising news. And with the evidence that has been sent off to the crime lab, we can expect to see additional arrests in the future.
One question, I'm just wondering, Chief or Deputy Chief Gilmore, how many Winnipeg Fire paramedic individuals are in part of the investigation? Like how many are dedicated to full-time investigations?
So we have 4 platoons, and each of those platoons has a dedicated fire investigator. Then we also have about 3 or 4 backup investigators on each of the platoons. So that ensures that we have investigator coverage 24/7, 7 days a week. In addition to that, we have Scooby, the ATF agent now here in Winnipeg.
Thank you. Any questions at all? Councillor Duncan, then Councillor Lukes, pardon me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just in regards to some of the comments made by the delegation this morning, could you tell us about some of the work potentially that's being done by WFPS on the work with the community and fire prevention, or maybe these property owners who do business in the rental game of property ownership?
Sure. So we've actually, for a couple of years now, we've had a relationship with members from the Winnipeg Real Estate Board. We've met with them a couple of times at our headquarters at Fire Paramedic Service. They have an interest in ensuring that we have a safe community. So that's in community engagement. We also we've spent time with community groups out in areas of concern, such as Point Douglas, North Point Douglas, to the point that investigators from the police service, myself, other folks from fire prevention, folks from the mayor's office, have actually joined members in the community for walkabouts to hear about their concerns with problem properties, vacant buildings in the area. And so that's the level of engagement that we've been undertaking to really get a good understanding of what the concerns are in the particular areas.
As a follow-up to that, again, regarding some of the comments made by the delegation on essentially saying that, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but that this isn't an every property issue. It's few and far between, and it occurs at these properties frequently, and again and again and again. What are your comments to that? Is this something that is problematic with certain properties, or is it rampant across the city?
I think at one time there's about 5 neighborhoods that are, and it's detailed in the report, those are areas of high concern for us. They are areas of where we do have issues with the vacant and problem properties. I think it's important to note that arsons can occur anywhere in the city, and so we have to be cognizant of that. But we are focused very much on the problem areas. There are some changes that have occurred. Several months ago, we had the hardened boarding standards that came in, so I think we're already seeing some benefits to that. I think it was referenced earlier today, the extent of the problem. There is going to be no one thing that is going to solve this problem for us. There is a lot of cross-departmental work going on right now to work on the problem properties, vacant buildings. We have reestablished the Problem Property Committee, and that's being managed through the Office of the CAO. And I think it's very important to note that the reestablishment of that committee came as a direct result of community engagement between bylaw enforcement at the time and WFPS, and some of our very well-known community advocates. So Mr. Sel Burrows, it was through direct communications with Sel Burrows that we really thought that it would be a good idea to start up that Problem Property Committee once again. It's something that had functioned in years past with oversight from one of our former fire prevention directors. And after I had a phone call and a meeting with Sel and heard about the good work and productive work that came out of the committee, we really thought that we should get that committee up and running again, which it has been, and it's doing good work.
Thank you. Final question, then I'll go to Councillor Lukes.
Yes, thank you. Just final question, just in regard to the fee structure for these problem properties and the properties that do see these reoccurring fires. Criticism to us as elected officials and the public service about it not being firm enough. Can you walk us through where these numbers, I suppose, these recommendations on a new fee structure would come from, and why that would give confidence to people that this would be deterring people from either getting into these positions or encouraging people to get their properties looked after?
Thanks for the question. So there's been a lot of work in looking at this that Lisa undertook with assistance from legal services to look at the fee structure, the proposed fee structure that's before you today in the revisions. A lot of it ties into incentivization. So when we went forward with the initial fee structure, those fees, as you know, are laid out in our fees and charges schedule for firefighting and EMS services, and that is a full cost recovery schedule that was laid out. And typically, that fee structure we would apply to situations where we're being asked to provide human resources and equipment. Oftentimes, if we're called to municipalities on the outskirts of the city, areas that do not pay municipal property taxes, that's the fee structure that we applied. In terms of the revised fee structure, it really, in terms of community risk reduction, it's the decision of where do we go with the fees? We have to be cautious that the fee is not so high that it's going to disincentivize an individual or make it, impossible for them to continue with the renovations of their properties. And these were the stories that we were hearing from some of the folks that received the initial bills for firefighting charges at the vacant properties. Lisa, I'm going to ask if you want to explain a little bit more about the community risk reduction aspect of the fees.
Sure. So the initial fee structure we proposed, starting at $5,000, we went with that number because that was the lowest fee that was leveraged against any of the properties of the 43 that we built. So we felt that $5,000 would cover the very lowest and it'd be a starting place. But we did want to try to encourage action on the properties, because what we were seeing was that they would have an initial fire, they would receive a very high fee from that fire of, like, the average, I believe, was $26,000. And that would kind of pause any sort of renovation, any work to keep working on that property. And then they would just stop protecting it. They wouldn't take any action on it. It would have a second fire, and then it would have a third or a fourth. So we were trying to create a fee structure that would encourage people to still be taking action on the property after the initial fire. I guess I would just add to that quickly that often with the buildings, we were finding that the first fee was the highest, and then the second and the third fees were lower because there was less to burn the second and third time, so it was almost reverse.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Councilor Lukes.
Sure. So I guess just a question here. When you said 4 were arrested, were they, I don't know if you can tell me this or not, was it for multiple fires, or is it just a sole?
No, there were specific fire events. The first event was a February Balmoral Street fire. That fire occurred in February. There were 3 arrests made on that, and that's information all available from either WFPS or police news releases, so it's public information. So that was April 1st, 3 arrested. We then had a fire event in February at Red River Community College. That was followed by another arrest April the 18th. There was the June Keewatin Street condominium fire. Scooby, the ATF agent, was involved in the collection of evidence at that fire. That involved 1 arrest on July 2nd, and then we had a September 14th fire event on Atlantic Avenue that resulted in a September 18th Winnipeg police arrest of 1 individual. So those are the fire events.
Right. And then I guess just a couple questions related to the delegation. And one of the questions was the appeal process, like not having a public appeal process. Do you want to comment on that?
So there will still be ability for a public appeal process, is my understanding. But what we are building in with the revisions is an opportunity for some review at the department level, and to ensure that fees are actually appropriately applied. So people can apply for, I believe it's the waiver we've referenced. So we thought that it's a good idea to build in that process. This is not really a new process for us. We already, for many years now, have been involved with ambulance service billings. So it's a process that we're very familiar with and we've refined over time, where, you know, we issue the ambulance bills, and in some cases we hear back from customers, they have concern around their bill. Sometimes we might get the wrong patient, these sorts of things. So we have a defined process that we have internal review, and then we can make decisions around the bills. So
And then they can appeal it, and I believe it's the PP&D committee that it is.
Well, that's under the current process. The proposal in this report would be that the appeals would be heard at community services, but, you know, we're present at a number of committees. We're here today at EPC. I believe in a few weeks I'm going to be at the Finance Committee, be at Community Services.
Okay, well, that was the concern of the delegate, that there was no public sort of aspect to it. But
Yeah,
it sounds like that's not being eliminated.
That's not being eliminated.
Okay.
Any further comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, then thank you very much for your work and your presentation. We do appreciate
very
that.
much.
All right. The item is before us then. I think we have an amending motion on the recommendation of the public service. Councillor Duncan, maybe you just want to highlight what the amending motion is, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just looking at the fee structure again, you know, going from $26,000 as an initial charge to somebody who is requiring the services, the Winnipeg Fire paramedic services, and dropping it all the way down to $5,000, I don't think gives the public confidence that there's enough of a responsibility here. So I'd like to introduce a different fee structure, starting with $10,000 on the first vacant building fire, going up to $20,000, then $30,000, and $50,000 on the fourth occasion. If the clerk would like to give more detailed reading, if the committee would like that, then that's welcomed. However, that's the gist of it.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's pretty straightforward. What it is, for the most part, is a doubling of what is being proposed.
Yes.
By the public service within their report, except for the fourth fire, going from, I think, $20,000 to $50,000 is what we're looking at for any fourth or subsequent eligible vacant building fire to occur on subject property after March 1st, 2023. So that is what's being proposed. Any further discussion on this? Okay, call the question then. Councillor Duncan has moved on the main report as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to take a 10-minute break here and just give everyone a break for a moment, and then we'll come right back in 10 minutes, okay? Thank you very much. Okay, thanks, everybody. We're back here, continuing on with our EPC meeting for October 16th, 2024, on item number 7, the public art in major capital projects. So I'm going to turn it to Councillor Lukes on this one, please.
Yeah, okay. So they're wanting an extension of time, which is fine. We want to work this out. I think this is really good that we are incorporating a percentage of funding from Public Works into art. So I'll support this request for an extension of time, and if any have questions, I guess I could ask, but I'll make a motion to support the Public Services recommendation.
Okay, it's been moved to extend, for an extension of time. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item number 8, Councillor Brady on living wage framework.
Thank you. Just a couple comments first. I'd like to thank everybody for the discussion that's happened over a number of months on this particular matter. It's important that the city be an employer of choice, and that we need to keep and retain our employees. It's very important. And I think, what we're doing with the last collective agreement with CUPE in terms of that special wage adjustment for things like 301 is an important part of that. And again, we even saw it last week from our interim CAO. We're looking at, bringing more employees that have been able to work remotely back into the workplace. But in one case where retention of employees is important, for example, our call center employees, looking at perhaps in some cases exclusions from that. So that's one of the examples there for 311. So again, I'm going to move that we receive this report today as information. Again, the majority of our employees, especially when you work in things like retirement benefits and that, are well into making a living wage, and that continue to work with CUPE through the collective bargaining process, and all of our unions for that matter, in the future on matters regarding compensation.
Okay, so moved to receive this information. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item number 9, establishment of a tri-level agreement, intercity revitalization. This is that has come forward, I think with Councillor Eadie and Councillor Gilroy working together. Recently, they have been working with my staff, looking for an amendment here. And so I think we have an amendment that has been circulated.
Yep.
Everyone's got that? Okay. All right. And so, Councillor Brody?
Sure, I'll just read this out into the record here.
Thank you.
Therefore, be it resolved that City of Winnipeg councillors Ross Eadie and Cindy Gilroy be designated to identify and propose for council consideration policies that encourage social, economic, and physical renewal for inner-city and high-poverty neighborhoods in Winnipeg. 2, that as part of this designation, the councillor should meet with community renewal corporations, neighborhood associations, federal, provincial, and indigenous government representatives, and any other organization that the councillor determine relevant to their activities. 3, that if possible, the mayor assign one of the mayor's office policy analysts to assist and monitor these efforts. And 4, that the public service provide information that assists the efforts of the councillors to develop these policy proposals. I think all of council recognizes the importance and need for inner-city revitalization and support. This approach that we're taking here will give them an opportunity to to start that process and get the ball rolling. The clerk has pointed out we probably do need a little more information on how this gets fed back to council. So we'll probably need to make some modifications to this motion before council next week. But again, thank you. I'd like to thank, specifically Councillors Gilroy and Eadie for stepping forward on this matter.
Okay, great. Any questions on that? Okay. A motion then by Councillor Bawadi to proceed with this as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 10. I think we could probably do, well, let's just do item 10, then we can do one at a time. Item number 10, Councillor Lukes.
Sure. I'll move the Public Services recommendation.
All in favor? Sorry.
Yep.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 11, Councillor Duncan.
Yeah,
And 12, and 13.
I'm prepared to move items 11 through 13.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item number 14, Winnipeg Arts Council 2025 Corporate Plan. Councillor Santos.
I move the Public Services recommendation.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item number 15, the Local Food Infrastructure Fund Grant Application. Councillor Santos.
I move the Winnipeg Food Council recommendation.
Thank you. Moving forward with the request of, I guess it's the public service
Application
report?
for the
Application, that's
agricultural-
what the word I'm
yeah.
looking for. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Moving into the Audit Committee, Councillor Bawadi, would you be willing to move these items or address these items?
I'll introduce reports 1 and 2. Which one did you want to pull one?
I do want to pull one. It's just a question that I have related to the bylaws.
Sure, which item?
Bylaw on,
On 1 or 2?
item number, just give me a minute here.
This is the audit committee.
Yeah, on the audit, I know, the audit committee. Sorry about that, just give me a minute here. Item number 1, sorry, item number 1.
You want to talk about number 1? Okay, item number 2 then, Councilor
moved.
Kwadi is moving. Item number 2, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Item number 1, then I think our auditor is here. Mr. Jason Egger is here, so thank you very much. And thank you. Councilor Lukes, if you have a question, go ahead and you could ask
So
the
I
question
just
this
wonder
time.
if you could give us an update on the bylaw amalgamation audit process, kind of what's going on there.
So they're still in progress. Like that's a lot of moving parts, the bylaw one, and it's from what we understand, there's a briefing note that's going to be sent to the CAO and talking about some of the recommendations going forward, and that's expected for this next quarter coming up. And some of it has to do with having enough FTs and where they're going to move the FTs to actually be able to do a comprehensive taking a comprehensive look at the city on that side. So it's kind of they're just waiting to get more of that information to be able to move that report forward.
Okay, so just sort of explain to me 2018 to now, what's been happening?
2018, well, the pandemic, one time, they've taken a few direction changes as far as like where it's going to sit and some different philosophies on how to approach it. You guys have given clear guidance going forward that we do want a focused amalgamation of bylaw enforcement. I think they're still trying to figure that out as far as where they're allowed to enforce bylaw and if they can actually do a central one and how that works out. And that's having the degree. So, and then COVID came, that sort of put that on hold for a bit. So now they're a concerted effort. They've got an active committee working on it. They have a draft, like we've seen the draft briefing note on there. So I mean, it's imminent. It's just, they're just working out the details on that side. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions at all?
No, I'll move the report.
So moved then, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thanks so
Egger.
much.
Appreciate that. Thank you. All right, moving then to the report of the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services dated October 1st, 2024. There's no report. Moving then to the SBC on Public Works dated October 2nd,
Works.
2024.
I'd like to move consent agenda of number 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on then to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development dated October 3rd, 2024. Given the absence of Councillor Rollins, I'm wondering, Councillor Duncan, if you could move this agenda, please?
Yeah, absolutely. On behalf of Councillor Rollins, I'd like to move items number 1 through 6, consent agenda.
Okay, items 1 through 6, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The next item is the Water, Waste and Environment Standing Committee, October 4th, 2024. One item, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move item number 1 as recommended.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on then to addendum report of Standing Policy Committee of Finance, Economic Development dated October 10th, 2024. Item number 1, the Entertainment Funding Tax Annual Report. Councillor Bawadi.
I'd like to introduce the report and move consent agenda item 1.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the Governance Committee of Council dated for October 10th, 2024. I think we have Councillor Lukes moving this this agenda this afternoon.
Okay. I'll move items 1, 2, and 3.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
I'll move we go in camera.
Okay, motion to go in camera then.
Okay, now, how do we do that again? Someone always sends me a link.
Okay. Thank you. We'll go in camera now. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. We've now moved back out of camera, and then I'll call for consent agenda and adjournment. Councillor Duncan, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.